Hello, and welcome to our webinar on creating community impact through listening. This session will be hosted with Orly Israel, who is a huge inspiration to us and our community. Orly started the listening table back in November of 2021, and actually we got connected on Instagram. If you follow him over there, you'll see that he runs listening tables in Los Angeles, California, and has done so over 100 times in his community. And Orly is an absolute inspiration. He's a listening and communication skills teacher and the founder of the Listening Table. He cares so deeply about the connections between friends and families and strangers alike, and believes that a lot of people have much more in common than they let on. You should definitely check out and listen further for this session, and do ask us any questions in the comments. It would be amazing to interact in this way. And remember, you can use the listening table or anything similar like those resources in your community to make community impact. And Orly hosts further training sessions on Sundays. If you have a little look at his website, feel free to engage and start a listening table in your community. Thank you so much to Orly for hosting this session with us and sharing your incredible story about how community impact has been made through listening and the founding of the Listening Table.
Yes, great. And we'll just get started talking about the listening table and how you can set your own up anywhere in the world, and what the beauty and joy and benefits from doing that are. Okay, so now just bear with me for 1 sec as I pull up slideshow presentation. Here we go. Okay, one more second as I always navigate this Zoom. Here we go. Set up, share, play. Let's see. This is the correct share. Almost. Okay, here we go. Is everyone seeing? Are you seeing the big logo? Great. Okay, so this is a listening table, right? This is me, essentially. Could be you in the future. And this is my listening table. And my story, this is how I learned about communication skills. This is me as a baby. And this is me growing up with 2 younger brothers. Does anyone else here have siblings? You can put in the chat if you understand. Beth has it. This is kind of what would happen in my life. Being 3 boys in one house, someone would inevitably say something mean, and then I, as the older brother, would use the power of my fists, the power of violence, to make my life easier. It was not a great problem-solving method, but it's what I knew at the time. And that when I was mean to my younger siblings, they would be mean to each other, and it created the cycle of violence in the family. Then the parents would get involved, right? And we'd have a situation kind of like this. And if this is a familiar scene to anybody, then I promise you it's a normal thing that happens to most people. But I was very lucky because I had a dad who is a writer. And when you're writing, I learned that you create this world. And that means there's a story with characters, a location, conflict. You have a goal, you have obstacles, and you set the scene. And when you're creating a scene, any type of story, you get to make up everything. So let's make up a character. And since we're in control of the world, we can make a character of balloons. We could do anything we want. We could put them in the sky and we release them. And this is just a story of how I learned communication skills at the very beginning, because you can create this world. And so I learned from my dad that when you're writing, you have to make choices. What's the character saying? What do they want to achieve? What does the character want others to think about them? What do they want to get? How were they raised? How are they feeling? What do they think about themselves? All of these questions you have to ask about your characters when you're creating a story. And in my life, I learned that when someone acts mean to you, you can make choices for yourself. And you can ask, well, why do I want to say that? What do I want other people to know? What do I want other people to feel? Hold on. This is some kind of incredible power. This is just actually what turned out to be awareness, but everyone has to develop this for themselves in the world. And after I had started questioning why I made the choices I did, me and my family, we stopped fighting entirely. Now I went to college, and after college, I was very interested in finding out why people communicate poorly, if they know what choices they can make. And I end up volunteering in a program that goes into prisons and holds conversations with people in prison. And I would have the most normal conversations that I could possibly imagine. One person talks about their mom being mean to them. One person talks about why they want to take care of their children. And we learn about anger being what you feel when you're feeling hurt, and hurt what you feel when you're feeling like something you love is being taken away. And I'm sitting here in this prison and I'm seeing something that kind of makes sense to me because I've been thinking about life as a writer and how to create characters and the underpinnings of humanity. And I'm sitting next to somebody and they have this moment where their head is exploding. They say, I never thought that I'm mad because I'm feeling hurt. And this is, someone in their 40s or 50s. And it's amazing to see this. And then I realized that if you never had parents or friends or family that showed you kindness, how are you supposed to show other people kindness if you don't know what that is? The same goes with forgiveness. If you don't have a role model that's ever done forgiveness for somebody, how are you supposed to do that for somebody else? And this was really impressive to me because I realized, well, everyone's different and is raised differently and has totally different ways that they learn to walk through the world. Like this person whose head was exploding, who ended up in prison, not because they were a bad person, but because they didn't know all the good choices they could make. And so after leaving several months of doing these workshops when COVID started, because we couldn't go into the prisons anymore, I found myself in an online communications class, communication skills on this teaching called nonviolent communication. And we learned about listening, we learned about speaking, but the most important thing that I heard my teacher say was learning how to communicate is a lot like learning how to swim. You can read as many books on swimming as you want, but you're not going to learn how to swim if you don't get in the water. And the day I heard that, I decided I have to find a way to swim. So I set up my first listening table because it was a way for me to practice these communication skills, these listening skills specifically, because you break it up and first you practice listening. And once you're good at listening, you can start practicing what you're going to say. But I did this first listening table and I met a neighbor of mine. She lived immediately next door. We'd lived together for over a year and never had a really solid conversation. And finally, with me just sitting out here in public with a sign that says here to listen, written in Scotch tape, we had this incredibly deep conversation where I learned so much about her. And it was really, really life-changing. So much so that I started doing listening tables every single week. And every time I would have this incredible, wonderful conversation. And here's just some pictures. I've been in the newspaper or the news, and all of a sudden I was hooked, and other people started coming with me and getting inspired to do their own listening tables. And so I developed the listening table master plan. Step one, I listen to you. Now, if you're doing a listening table, this is you listening to someone else. Right, the I is you now. Step two, you feel heard. Maybe that feels good. Maybe that's a new feeling. Maybe that's just like when I learned in the prisons, some people have never felt heard before. They've never had someone in their life that's a good listener. They've never had someone in their life who was willing to spend, and this is something I've learned at several listening tables. Some people have more than 15 minutes of things to say, but will never have somebody who's going to give them more than 15 minutes to talk. Step 3, you listen to others, right? You give somebody the feeling that if you can listen to them, and you're not a therapist, not a social scientist, if you can do it for them, then they can do it for other people. Pop quiz. Woohoo! I hope we have a chat access. I can't see it, but I'll believe it. What is the greatest gift in the world? Is it time, love, money, or designer merchandise? I'll give you all of some time to post in the chat if anyone has one of these answers. All right, well, time, love, time. Well, what I heard from somebody was time is the greatest gift you can give somebody. But maybe time and love are the same thing, because it's very hard to give love to somebody in no time. So here's the picture of the listening table. You sit and you're there to listen to somebody, and people can come up. Maybe it's one person, maybe it's 3 people, maybe it's 4 people, and you are giving them time, which is a humongous act of love. It is the greatest gift you can give somebody. And you're showing people that it's possible to sit there and to listen without judging somebody, without giving advice. You're also learning that it's possible, because the listening table is a way for you to practice being there for someone else. So by showing this, look, I've done over 100 and so many listening tables, and I have learned in so many steps. I can remember listening table number 4. I can remember listening table number 56. I can remember almost all of them, but some of them have such incredible lessons for me in my own personal experience that have made the next ones even better. And so if you show your love and compassion to somebody else who may not have experienced it in this way, they might be able to go back home to their family and show them a little extra love, a little extra care, to their friends, to strangers, even being able to listen better to themselves if you are able to provide that space for them. I want to introduce you to Vivek Murthy, U.S. Surgeon General. He is a man who just put out this humongous study on loneliness, which found that 3 out of 4 men in America are experiencing loneliness or social isolation. That's 75% of people, of men. But it also applies to the rest of the world, which we'll talk about in a second. He found that loneliness posed a bigger health risk than smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Now that is really hard to put into like rationale, because smoking is still bad for you. But the World Health, this person, the World Health Organization, who's that? Just recently declared 2 weeks ago that loneliness is a global health crisis, with people suffering from loneliness and social isolation having a 50% increased risk of dementia, 25% risk of early death, and 30% risk of stroke, with many other raised risks if you have loneliness and social isolation. And so listening tables are designed to be the antidote for social isolation. You see, if I can do a listening table, I can affect this many people. I've done it hundreds of times and had thousands of people sit down. So imagine if we had more people doing listening tables in their worlds, and people were getting filled up with energy and compassion and learning different ways to be there for each other. And then those people go out in the world and mix with each other. We have this huge net of people contributing and loving and caring and sharing kindness with each other. One thing that this study found is that isolated people are more likely to get sick. And sick people are less likely to connect with other people. So sick people are more likely to be isolated. It's a spiral that goes downwards. Meanwhile, connected people are more likely to feel energized, and energized people are more likely to socialize and be connected. So that is a positive cycle. So the listening table in several ways can interrupt somebody's cycle that is going downwards. They get to have a conversation, recharge their social battery, and go out in the world and combat this feeling of social isolation. One of the things that you'll learn by sitting at the listening table is that some people, even though they know people, even though they're part of a family, even though they have friends, have never truly had someone sit and listen to them. They don't even know what it feels like to be part of a conversation where someone's not telling you what to do if you have a problem, you're giving you advice, or tell you you shouldn't feel bad about this. It's not that big a deal. Oh, I have it worse. There's all kinds of things people say when people are uncomfortable. But there's good news, because good listening is something that anybody can do. And so that's where the listening table comes in as a symbol, because more listening tables equals more warm and kind people working on their listening skills and spreading a message publicly. And that means more dominoes in this domino effect, creating ripples all over the world. So I have some guidelines that will help you set up your own listening table, like bumpers and bowling. And this is a shorter version of it, because there's so much that goes into being able to sit there. We'll talk about when I teach classes online, but let's pretend this is you. You are warm, kind, caring, curious. Maybe you want to be heard in your life, and that's why you want to start this. That's something that was true for me, or you want better relationships, or you want to help others. Does any of these things resonate with anyone in here? You could feel free to put some of these in the chat if any of these relate to you or which ones do. I'd love to hear what brought some people into this room today. I'll give you a second, type something up. Hussein, caring and kind. Beautiful. Aisha, what you got for me? Come on, somebody. Let's hear from a couple of voices if we can. Just give a couple more seconds. All right. Thank you for writing in. I'm glad you wrote that, Aisha, because if anyone here has been on a plane, then they have seen this diagram, which is how to use an oxygen mask. And basically what it says is, in order to, the first person in a plane event, when you need to protect yourself from the toxins in the air, is you have to put your own oxygen mask on, and then you go and help other people. And that's why the main purpose of the listening table is you personally are working to become a better listener and to show people how it feels to be heard. This is a practice in your listening, first and foremost, and also spreading a message that everyone can be there for their people. The purpose is not to fix anybody's problems. People might have healing moments while they're talking, which is an awesome byproduct. And it's happened so many times where someone is able to talk something out and it becomes this beautiful moment. What you'll learn when you're sitting at the listening table is patience. Somebody might talk for a long time and you will have to learn how to find interest. You'll learn curiosity, how to control your curiosity. If someone's telling a story that's really important to them, how to not cut them off, how to realize what's important, to realize you might get the answers you want if you just sit there and listen. You'll learn about compassion and what that feels like when you're sitting with someone who's going through a hard time and you're not trying to fix it, but you're just trying to be there with them. And you'll learn about empathy. You'll learn about speaking about empathy. You will learn about feeling empathy because you will be doing it, which has been an incredibly transformational experience for me, being able to understand more emotions, to put more words to people's feelings, to see what happens when I say the right thing, and to see what happens when I say the wrong thing, and being able to practice that. The most important thing that you need to know is that you're not a crisis center when you're setting up the listening table. You should know the resources for your local suicide prevention, crisis, mental health services, where the nearest hospital is potentially. But you are not a firefighter. If somebody is the proverbial, somebody who really needs help, then it is within your responsibility to say, look, I'm not, this seems like something that's higher and harder to deal with than I'm prepared for. So I recommend that you would see this proper line or center. The techniques that we like to use at the listening table, the most basic one, thing you want to think about is listening to yourself. And I've broken into 3 separate parts. First, you got to focus on what you want to know when you're sitting with somebody. So here's a short story. It's me at my listening table. Somebody comes up and says simply, my mom died. Questions that I have would be, how did you die? How long did you know she was going to die for? This is me being curious. Do you have other supportive family members? How are you doing? What are you going to do next? When did this happen? In reality, this person already knows this. The person sharing with me knows everything about the situation. And in this particular case, which has actually happened several times, they don't want to talk about any of those things. They want to talk about a memory. They want to talk about how they're feeling in the moment, how much they miss them, a story of a lesson they learned after they passed away. So being able to recognize what I want to know is not what I need to know is a super valuable lesson and technique in practicing listening. The second technique in listening to yourself, knowing what you want to say. So here's another short story for the listening table. A kid comes up to me and asks if he should get a haircut. And this is a very simple story, but this one meant a lot to me because I had very long hair as a young person, and I had really strong feelings about my own, if I should get a haircut or not. And I felt like I could give this kid some really important advice that I would have loved to have as a kid. But people also, when you're sitting out in public listening to people, will have much more questions. Should I move to another country? Should I quit my job? Should I stay with my partner? All kinds of questions will come up if people are sharing deep things, which is why I have the no advice sign on my table, because who am I to give advice on something like that? And so what you can say, instead of trying to fix someone's problems, is, what do you think you should do? Or what advice have other people given you? And if the other people's advice wasn't working for you, why? Instead of trying to tell somebody what to do, I just like to ask somebody about what their options are and what they feel like about those things. Because ultimately, I've just met the person a couple minutes ago. How am I supposed to give them such great advice when I don't know their situation other than what they've told me? The final part of listening to yourself is being able to hear what you want to achieve. Now, this is slightly different than what you want to say. What you want to achieve is more of on a basic level. If someone says, and this isn't a real conversation, this is just a figurative conversation, if someone says, I am sad, usually you want to achieve cheering them up. I want you to be happy. If someone is uncomfortable, it is easy for you to want them to not be uncomfortable so that you can feel better. This is the hardest part of being a good listener, is that what you want is less important in the moment. You're there for them, not for you to feel more comfortable by solving something for them. I also use a technique called reflection, which is basically the practice of saying, what are you hearing? So think of yourself like a mirror, and you can find a list of emotions or feelings online. There's several of them. Here's just one that I've printed out. It's got a bunch of different emotions on it. And if you bring something like this with you to practice, if someone tells a story, you can say, it sounds like I'm hearing that you are annoyed by your situation. And maybe they are, and maybe they're not. The most beautiful thing, and I think that there's a slide about it later, is it's okay if you're wrong. If you say, oh my gosh, you can't run the marathon because you hurt your leg, you must be really disappointed. Is that what I'm hearing? And it turns out they're not. They're actually happy that they can now not run the marathon and they can watch their daughter run the marathon. Even though I'm wrong in this specific situation, this is a real situation, I'm showing that I'm interested in what they're saying. And so them correcting me is just a natural part of the conversation that still brings us closer together. Sometimes you will say the right thing, like when someone shared about how they were upset about their mother passing away. And I said, it sounds like you're really sad. Is that what I'm hearing? And that didn't really land with them. It didn't feel like the right thing. And they were kind of cold and upset. And I said, oh, is it possible that you're really mad about this? And then when I said that, the whole glass wall broke and they started crying and yelling. And it was just this incredible experience of connectivity with somebody because I didn't give up trying to understand them after being wrong the first time. And then I found what they were really feeling. And just by saying it, it gave them the space to feel it. Some questions that I get. Do I say anything? I know it says the listening table, but listening does not mean just being silent. Listening is part of a conversation. You just don't control the conversation. You let it go where the person speaking wants to take it. There's other questions that get asked, and I'm not going to answer all of them today because of time. So I'm going to move into building your listening table. It's incredibly simple. You've got a table and you've got signs. And I also like to put signs on the side, depending on where the location is, because if people are coming on a path and they can't see you from the front, it helps to have signs on the side. As pictured here, I have the signs want to talk. I also put a sign that says free human connection, want to vent, want to be heard. I like to experiment with different signs. I understand in different languages, there's different ways to say all of this stuff. And the listening table really is what you make it. So putting whatever you want on the sign is part of how you create that. There's no right way to do it. There are a lot of wrong ways to do it, and that's the point of practicing. So where do you put your table? That's another question that really would help people do it. In community is a really good place for listening tables. If you're a student at a school is a great place to do it because there are people, they're generally safe. You can do it in a place where people are. There are already usually tables at school, and you can get groups together where if one person does it on every other Monday, one person does it every other Tuesday, You only need a handful of people to have listening tables all the time, and more listening and just wonderful, wonderful for the world and your community. For me, the local place people go to hang out is the beach, and there are also senior centers, homeless shelters, plenty of places where listening tables are good for communities that are suffering even more from social isolation. So here's a little map. I try to stay away from residential areas and stores, shopping centers, and mostly like to go for places that someone would go for a walk. Someone would go to clear their mind. But that's not possible for everybody, because in some places it rains all the time. In some places it's cold often, or incredibly hot. And that's why the most important listening table is the one that is in your home. The table you eat dinner or eat with your friends, lunch or breakfast, or wherever you sit, because listening, these skills are important to keep families and communities together, to keep them from avoiding fights, to feel closer together, and to build that positive, virtuous cycle that we talked about earlier. I have a map of places in the world that we have listening tables. Every week I have to update it and make it more yellow, because I have no Singapore and Japan have tables in them as of a week ago. It looks like some more states in America. I'm excited to put some more places on the map after this. Spain, how did I miss Spain? Listening tables all over the world. Maybe one day we will have a world where someone will be walking down the street and see a listening table that it didn't even know about. So that is the slideshow. Happy to answer any questions or tell other stories if anyone would like to hear. So thank you. And yes, I also have a Discord channel where people who do listening tables tell their stories and stay connected and practice learning about how listening in different communities is different. We're doing a study on that right now to see what different cultures resonate with listening tables differently. Yes. So now I'll open it up for some questions. I think we have about 10 more minutes. What is the percentage of listening and talking, and how do I rate it? I would say it's mostly listening. It's probably like 80% listening, 20% talking, maybe. It feels like a very regular conversation when you're really flowing. The person's talking and you're responding as appropriately. Saying what you're hearing is very casual. It's not like treating them like they're at therapy. It's trying different things like, that sounds really frustrating. Or like, wow, like, thank you for telling me that is a big thing I talk about often. I usually tell somebody how difficult certain things are to say, like, thanks for telling me that. I can't imagine what it's like to be going through something like that. I really appreciate you telling me that because I'm a stranger. Something so personal. Or sometimes I ask questions. It really is supposed to feel like a normal conversation, because this is something that's supposed to be like anyone can do it. So it doesn't feel like too much outside of a normal conversation. It's just you're mostly listening.
Thank you so much, Orly. Does anybody else have any questions? Please do pop them in the chat. And if you're listening in Facebook as well, pop a question there. In the meantime, while your questions are coming in, I do have one question for you, Orly, as well, that came up. Have you ever encountered any negativity to the tables, and what has been your response to that type of scenario, such as like maybe a negativity could be someone asking you to move the table or something like that? How have you overcome those things?
Yeah, there's been some negativity. I have been asked to move the table a few times, sometimes nicer, sometimes meaner than others. There's only one time where I felt like I was in a really not the best place. It was a neighborhood I wasn't familiar with, and somebody was, even after setting up and having hours of sitting and having really positive experiences, one person just didn't want me around. And so I left. There's been times where, other than that, a couple times where I've been told to leave from areas I didn't know. You're not allowed to do that in. So I did learn, like, you want to know where you're doing it. And doing it in a regular location is good. So I've done it there's like 5 to 7 places that I do it in. And once you find a good place to do it, you can just keep doing it there. So there are also people who just don't like the idea of it, I guess. Every once in a while, someone will just say like something about how they think it's dumb. But that usually just lasts like a second as they walk by. And there are usually 100 more people who say it's really nice. So that doesn't really bother me.
That's positive. And I think an important part of your message is just carrying on with your mission and not being, brought down by those negativity and those comments. And who knows, maybe at the end of the day, that person has gone home and had a little think about what impact it actually made on them and hopefully reflected from that. Does anybody else? Sorry, go on.
One of the things that I want to remember to mention is that if I've listened to 1,000 people, I think I'm getting close to 1,000 people from my personal table. If I've had 1,000 conversations that are really deep and personal, I've probably had 2,500 conversations that are, what is the purpose of what you're doing? And so being able to say, this is for me to work on being a better listener. This is for me to be able to show that anyone can practice their listening skills is a conversation you will have a lot of times. And both of those are valuable conversations. I like to think that people will go back to their home and remember, like, it's possible. So many people have asked me, how do you have a conversation with someone if you're not giving them advice? Or if you're not telling them what to do or what you feel about something. And it just goes to show that if you don't understand how to do that, how are you going to? And there's people who just think giving advice is all you can do, which is why it's important to show that you can also listen. How long do I set up for? Usually about 2 hours at a time. And the best time of day, I think, is whenever people are out. The nighttime is usually, I haven't really done many at night, so say probably not the nighttime. Yeah, when people are out is a pretty good time.
Good to know. And I guess it completely depends on what area you're setting up this table. I know some of our community members are from Moran University in Pakistan, Karachi University. I've seen people from Ghana here joining us and all over the world, Cameroon, who've done lots of different work in schools and things. So maybe it's about when is the best time in those situations. And I'll just welcome everybody else to ask any more questions to Orly. It's such a unique and brilliant opportunity. I know there'll be many more future interactions, but if you have any question at all, please do pop it in the chat or on our live stream on Facebook. We'd love to see the questions come in. Orly, can you go over as well what are some of the resources? You spoke a little bit about like what you needed and things, but can you just give us a little bit of a rundown in terms of what type of resources do these young people need to set this up?
They need time. That's really what it is. To be willing to spend your time trying something new and to share it with other people. I've done it without the table. I've done it with just a yellow piece of paper. I wrote here to listen on it. I've stuck it on the ground. I've done it at family and other people, like event, where I take a paper, I fold it in half, I write here to listen, I put it on a table, and I listen to friends and family and just have these great conversations. Tables, not everyone has a folding table, and it's not necessary to have one. There's a guy who does it at a lunch table in his school. There's people who put it on a little wooden sign and just bring it with them with like a little cart. Do you need to bring a table and chairs? If you have it, it helps. If you don't have it, you don't need it. You just need to be able to show somebody that you are there for them. Yeah. And if you're able to do it and take a picture and send it to me or Beth or join the Discord. I don't know if you guys use Discord.
An impact report, and we can track all of these and see how many are being all over the world, maybe as well.
Yeah, that would be amazing for the period of time that we have. Being able to show impact, it really is incredible impact that people say the doing listening tables has had on their personal lives. Yeah, would recommend.
I want to ask you one last question orally, but let's just see if anything else comes in from the community. I know we have people all over the community here. Please do not be shy. Feel free to pop your question in the chat, or you can even come on the microphone. It'll be so wonderful to hear your voice. Do not be shy. I know who's here, and I'll pick on one of you if not. No. So please feel free to ask orally a question. Anybody like to come in? No, nobody's coming in to ask a question. Okay, so pop them in the chat if you have any follow-up questions. My final question to you, Orly, and I just want to say a huge thank you for your session as well. It was incredibly engaging, and also I learned a lot personally from the session that I will definitely take into many different of my conversations. What has been one of your main learnings, that maybe something that has completely shocked you in this entire experience and helped you grow as a person? What has that main learning been for you?
I have been able to hold back my opinion on things now, and my ability to control my curiosity and lead with that is so much better. I've been able to really be interested in people when normally I would be dismissive of different opinions. Now I'm interested. Why do you feel this way? Or like more open-minded for sure. And also doing listening tables is a practice in getting out of your comfort zone. And that has totally changed how I go through the world, because now I'm much more comfortable trying new things. I've also made a lot of really good friends by doing this. And it's really awesome because it says, the study shows, the more you do something, the better it is for you. So the first listening table is great. The 150th listening table is even better. And I look forward to it. It's my favorite time of every week.
Oh, that's so brilliant to hear. And very interesting to know that you've been able to like hold your tongue or gain patience in the process as well. I think like patience is such a big, important learning as well, having different people's opinions and not knowing that you might not agree with everybody as well as they're speaking and sharing their lives or sharing their opinions. I think that's just the beauty of the world, is that we're diverse. But one of my favorite things in your bio that you said to me is that a lot of you'd be surprised how much we have in common, which is what I also find interesting, and what I love about this space in the community that we have as well, is that we are from so many different countries around the world, but we all have a common purpose with wanting to make community impact. And with that, we can unite around a cause and unite around a mission, whether that's the Sustainable Development Goals or like a specific issue or specific mission. And I really encourage everybody here to take up the listening table. I know there's a call of action that Orly has. So maybe you want to share a little bit about what you do on Sundays. And we'll be following up with a newsletter as well with these resources that Orly has, and hopefully a very exciting challenge next year as well. So Orly, do you want to just wrap up with any of those last resources and call to actions for our young people?
Yeah, so I got through most of the slideshow. On every other Sunday, I'll do something similar to this. So this Sunday, I'll do another one. And then 2 Sundays, I post on thelisteningtable.com when each session will be. It's just like this over Zoom. I do the slideshow. You'll see a lot of the same slides, which is great to keep if you have other questions, if you want to share it with other people. I recommend coming. before you do your listening table. And then I also will be putting them on YouTube over time in ways that you can get into to take with you, to review. It's also great to be able to connect with other people doing listening tables over the world, because you get to learn different conversations, and then you can take their lessons and bring it to your conversations. So I hope that we get to have a challenge next year and we get to see some listening tables out there. It would be really amazing. I think you'll love it.
Yes.
It will definitely surprise you.
Yeah, we'll have to do some reflection sessions, I think, with the community as well, as we build out this challenge about what our learnings have been, and maybe sharing some of these case studies to just learn from each other. I think that would be so amazing to also hear the different contexts that we're all from and what our experience was. So more on that. We'd love to see you there, everybody. Orly will put a shout out on our newsletter to come along to his other little training sessions. And we'll be having this on YouTube as well if you want to have a little look back on his session. So I'm just going to share a few final bits from the session. Thank you so much again, Orly, for coming and being able to share your story with us and share your mission about listening. This is such an important part of all the work that we do at QS Impact. So it's really wonderful to be able to get you in front of our young people and to share this story. As all of you may know, we have a very exciting award ceremony happening in January. Our Impact Awards celebrate the incredible action that is happening on the ground from people like you who might be listening in, doing community actions, projects, and events that are making a positive contribution to the world. And our theme for this year is all about regeneration, restoring our local ecosystems, and providing positive feedback back into our societies to renew land, to renew societies, and bring communities together. So we have 8 categories this year for our Impact Awards. You can see them all here. One of the ones I want to highlight for you all today is the community transformation category. So when you upload an impact report to be eligible, if you select this category, you can be eligible to win an award with us. And the category focuses specifically on what you have done to bring community members together. So you have to measure how many people you've interacted with for your community event or initiative, and what you've done in the area in which you serve and the community in which you are in. So if you would like, Orly's listening table would be a perfect example here to do an impact before all these impacts are due on December 15th. Not too long, but we do have an announcement about that soon, so do not worry. Get going, see if you can get that impact report in. To be eligible, you need to be 18 to 35, so above the ages of 18 to 35 years of age is around the area that we serve in young people. And we want you to be registered on our platform, and you have to upload that impact report. So this is the case study of what you've done in your community, some type of community event, such as a listening table. The top 10 performers will be going to our judges, who are many different representatives. We've got UNESCO chairs, we've got National Geographic photographers, we've got different people who are working in documentary film all the way to policy, the UN, and education. And you'll be part of that pre-selection group that will be receiving this award potentially on January 18th of 2024. So regardless, please upload your impact report for any of these categories. We would love to see them, and start registering to come and attend the January 18th, 2024 event. We will have many surprises at the event too, so do come along. More information is on our social media or our website, qsimpact.org. And as part of the prizes this year, you'll be winning a QS Impact badge and social media kit to build out your resume and your online presence. It's really important to share the word and to share these positive stories with the world, and use this as a part of your own personal development to build key skills, values, and talents to share with the world and help us to implement the Sustainable Development Goals. You'll also be get the opportunity to be an individual representative at the United Nations Environment Programme events. So QS Impact charity is accredited to the United Nations Environment Assembly, and you'll be able to help embed policy decisions, potentially have speaking opportunities and attendance in those events. And all winners will also be featured in the QS Insights magazine. QS is our partner, as you may know, who's a higher education company that is huge around the world who are promoting career development, international mobility, and education opportunities through universities. So you do not want to miss out on this. It's a great opportunity. And most of all, come and celebrate with us on January 18th. I can't wait to see you there. There's some amazing speakers. There's some amazing contributors. So to be eligible, you have to upload an impact report, which is a case study of what you've done in your community, over on our website. If you have any questions, feel free to message us on Instagram, Facebook, beyond, or our contact details are here. And you can scan this QR code to upload an impact report. I was showing Orly the impact reports yesterday, a lot about the tree planting ones and things in the community. And I hope to think that he was very inspired by what the work that other young people are doing here. So cannot wait to see your impact reports and see what comes in. Is there any last questions for Orly or the team before we end our session? No, okay. Well, without further ado, we would like to thank you, Orly, for this time. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. This is not the last time we will be interacting in this way, I'm more than sure. But thank you very, very much for sharing, and we cannot wait to keep the conversation going.
Can't wait. It's such a pleasure. I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day and year and future. Until then.
Thanks, Orly, and bye, everybody. Have a great day. Bye.